Hello, welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Joe Samaniego here, along with Ben Schneider, Kobe Lamb from the Podium Finish, and Adam Lemery's our supercar expert. A big thank you to our Patreon subscribers calling the show, Mark and Robin, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Monthly contributions to the Grid Network have your name displayed on the air, or a one-time contribution on Buy Me a Coffee. Buy a cup of coffee for your favorite on-air personality. It goes a long way since we're on the air just about every weekend. NASCAR, IMSA in January, all the way to the last races in December. Then we do it all over again in January 2023. With that said, one driver that is hoping to get another repeat championship and try to go for 3 in a row by 2023, Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and today, Kyle Larson earned his second win of the 2022 season today at Watkins Glen International, but did so by pushing Chase Elliott wide on the final restart, costing his teammate a few spots. Larson won at Fontana earlier in the season after making contact with Elliott, so I guess that's why you can understand why Chase might have been really upset with Larson at the end of the race, and we'll get into that in a little bit. However, the big international story is Kimi Raikkonen's first NASCAR Cup Series race exiting the bus stop. Ross Chastain made contact with Austin Dillon, and Loris Hezemans squeezed Raikkonen into the tire barriers to end the Iceman's Day early. Raikkonen said he had a lot of fun and even started running up into the top 10, or he was running really impressive before that happened. So, Ben, first question goes to you. Was Larson's move on Elliott fair play, and how will you rate Kimi's Cup debut?
I suppose it was fair play if Larson is willing to accept that he might have more coming from Elliott later this season. Sounds like we might have some feedback once again, but we'll keep going here. Yeah, I would say, you have to remember what happened at Fontana earlier this season and, try to factor that into Larson's kind of mindset as we go into the playoffs here. Elliott, I think his television interview that he gave with USA there at the very end, he said, congratulations, they did a good job and everything that they needed to do. I think that was very professional and very corporate, I think is the word that a lot of people were using to describe it. I think when you looked at him when he got out of the car, and I think NBC's cameras even had the side-by-side as they were interviewing Larson on the front stretch, that maybe in reality he's not too happy since this is not the first time this season it's happened to him, not just from a teammate, but from the same teammate. So, I think ultimately he still came across the line in a very good finishing position. So I think, when you consider Rubbings racing and stock cars, I think ultimately you can probably say it was, you lean fair as opposed to leaning foul on this one. But I do think it gives Elliott the license, maybe not to dump Kyle Larson, but certainly to move him out of the way. I mean, imagine if it's like a situation in the Xfinity Series championship battle last year where Kyle Larson is in Austin Cindric's position, Chase Elliott is in Daniel Hemrick's position. You better believe that Elliott is going to go full in to the corner, full send, just as Daniel Hemrick did, maybe even a little bit harder than Hemrick did to take that championship away. It may come down to that. Who knows what's going to happen as we get into the playoffs. But it does give Elliott, I think, a little bit more of a license to do that without being criticized as much, since Larson's done it to him a couple of times.
And I'll answer the second part of the question first. How do I rate Kimi Raikkonen's Cup debut? A 9 out of 10. He was impressive all weekend long in that number 91 car for Trackhouse Racing. He was up there when it came to practice. He was quick out of the holler, top 20 in practice. And then you mentioned Kobe. He got into the top 10. I mean, first time in that type of car. I mean, I was really impressed, and hopefully we'll see Kimi Raikkonen back in a Cup car. I mean, that was impressive. And getting to the first part of the question, I believe it was it was a fair move, and I'll agree with Ben. It was Rubbins racing. I mean, Kyle Larson only had one win on the season. Chase Elliott wrapped up the regular season. I mean, so Kyle Larson, he deserved that win today, and very happy very happy for him. And credit to Josh. He actually picked Kyle Larson to win in our pickle winner. So out of everyone. So congratulations, Josh.
Yeah, congratulations to Josh. And getting back to the question, I feel like the move Larson made and Elliott was fair play. And obviously, you don't want to see friction happening between teammates, but at least Larson didn't end up wrecking Chase Elliott. But as Ben was saying, if it comes down to the Cup Series championship at the end of the year at Phoenix, Larson and Elliott both in the championship fourth. Larson's leading going down the back stretch into turns 3 and 4. Elliott's behind him. Don't be surprised if Chase Elliott sends him up the racetrack as hard as he can and steal that championship away, because this is twice now Chase Elliott has been burned by Kyle Larson for wins. And ironically, Kyle Larson's only 2 wins this year, so it's really understandable why Chase Elliott was very frustrated at the end of the race. And if you caught it on the broadcast, Chase Elliott was so frustrated. He thinks we're going to be racing at Bristol next week instead of Daytona. So Chase was really, really, really fired up. And then as you guys mentioned, the response, was very corporate like, and Rick Hendrick wants things to be handled very, very, very professionally instead of airing out their dirty laundry in the media. So I'm sure Hendrick Motorsports is going to have a team meeting, sit down Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and they're gonna agree to move on from this and do what's best for the team, which taking care of each other out on the racetrack and continuing to race hard but clean for the race wins. And YouTuber Danny B Talks actually posted a really funny meme of Rick Hendrick and Jeff Gordon talking after the race, and I quote, "I thought I was done with this crap when you and Jimmy stopped racing." And if you remember, Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson got into it quite a bit. I mean, not a lot, but there was a point, when Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, a lot of people thought they were going to come to blows because that inter-team rivalry was getting so heated. I'm not sure if Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson will become that heated, but who knows what's going to happen in the next 11 weeks of racing. And to answer the second part about Kimi's Cup debut, I think he did reasonably well, all things considered. I was super impressed how Kimi was able to, run those quick lap times, running all the way up in the top 10. If he hadn't got caught up in the accident, I definitely could have seen Kimi possibly finishing in the top 15. And he definitely left the door open about potentially coming back and running another Cup race. I'm not sure if he'll do that, but I'm sure the NASCAR Cup Series garage will welcome him with open arms. He has a lot to be proud of today. That incident, there was nothing he could really do, but Kimi was really coming up to speed with the car, and I have a feeling if he gets another road course race, he'll do much of the same. And despite the stage cautions, which usually hurt strategy on the road courses, we did see a bit of strategy today with fuel mileage. We also saw fantastic battle as the track drive mixed conditions between Briscoe, McDowell, and Buescher. Lots of passing, aggression, some spins, and then the drama at the end among the 2 Hendrick Motorsports teammates. In your opinion, was this the best road course race we've seen so far in 2022?
I would have to say yes. So far in 2022, this really delivered. But part of it, though, has to be the changing conditions. Going from the wet track to the dry track, we saw drivers come in, make the pit stops for the tires, fuel, and that put some drivers on a different cycle when it came to fuel. If it wasn't for that, I think it's going to be the same of what we've seen in the past years. Everyone pitting with 2 laps to go before the stage end, and then just trying to stretch the fuel. The cautions, that would, of course, made it a little bit different, especially if we saw a driver pit in a later caution, try to make up the ground, even though we know that is really hard, hoping for a chaotic race. But I like to applaud NASCAR. I think the decision to delay the start, rather than having all the cars go out there while it was raining hard, potential puddles, and having a repeat of COTA, they delayed it. They changed it to where we had single file restart. I think it was just one of the better moves on NASCAR to do that. And overall, I think it was, I would say, one of the better races, probably the best race so far for a road course in the Cup Series this season. Let's see how the roll turns out.
Well, it was certainly the best road course race we've seen so far this season, and I think Watkins Glen historically has been one of the best road courses for NASCAR racing throughout its entire history. Up there with Sonoma as well, which has put on some good races. Maybe not as much in the stage racing era. I still think stage racing has killed an aspect of strategy, particularly on these road courses. But I think in terms of the actual racing that we saw today, we saw a lot of great fantastic racing as well. I guess I'll pick up the second part of that first question since I got so into what happened with Larson and Elliott there. Great to see Kimi Raikkonen out there as well. I guess he didn't technically get Chastained because Dilon was the one that got Chastained, and it was just kind of an accordion effect that ended up taking Kimi out. So that is unfortunate, but I hope we see him back as well. Great to see so many international drivers in this race, and hopefully I keep hearing we'll see Project 91 in 6 to 8 races next year, maybe on some more of these road courses as well. So, maybe they'll bring Kimi back for one of them. I think Kimi would certainly be welcomed once again in NASCAR now that his F1 days are over. And he sounds like he had a great time, so I don't see why he wouldn't want to come back if such an opportunity presented itself. But overall, very good race, very good battle to the end for the win, and great racing all throughout the pack. And as well as some names that, we don't normally see up front. Michael McDowell, I know we've seen his name up front a little bit more this season than we're used to. But his teammate, Todd Gilliland, as well, had a great run going until he had a mechanical issue as well. So it's unfortunate for him. But hopefully that Front Row Motorsports team is continuing to take a step forward, and we can see some bigger and better things from them for the rest of the season and going into 2023.
Yeah, Michael McDowell, Todd Gilliland, Front Row Motorsports has really done an excellent job building a strong road course racing program, and definitely got to give a shout to Todd Gilliland. It's unfortunate he had a broken axle there that put him out of the race, because it seems like in these last few weeks, Todd Gilliland has really come into his own as a NASCAR Cup Series driver, and if that team keeps improving their program all around, Todd Gilliland is certainly a great driver to build around for the future. And speaking of drivers we don't typically see running towards the front, how about that number 15 Ford Mustang from Rick Ware Racing? Ford factory driver Joey Hand had that car rolling. It was up in the top 5 at one point and ran inside the top 10, top 15 for a lot of the race, and until he unfortunately crashed towards the end. But that was a really good run, and there were a lot of great things that happened today. As you mentioned, Ben, there was a lot of excellent racing all throughout the field. We had the storyline talking about Larson versus Elliott now, and just a whole bunch of great things that came out of Watkins Glen. And by far, this certainly has to be one of the best road course races we've seen this year. And Watkins Glen is also one of the most popular tracks on the NASCAR schedule, and actually had a sellout crowd today. And Watkins Glen's had several sellout crowds over the years. Real nice area in upstate New York, and certainly a place that I'm sure a lot of people recommend if you haven't been before. And the race start was delayed, though, to allow the heavy rain to pass and prevent an ugly, messy situation like we saw at COTA in 2021. Toyota probably wished that they could have taken advantage of the chaotic race, but it was another day of struggles for TRD on the road course. Christopher Bell was the only Toyota in the top 10. Denny Hamlin finished 20 up, and then you had Toyota drivers down the run in order. Martin Truex Jr. finished ahead of Ryan Blaney by one position in 23rd, and those two are battling for the final playoff spot right now. Kyle Busch finished 32nd after spinning and hitting the wall late, in 23-11 racing wasn't a factor at all during this race. Are you surprised that Toyota hasn't made much progress on road courses this season? And should they be concerned about the Charlotte Roval playoff race, especially if some of their drivers are going to be in a must-win situation?
Well, the answer to both questions is yes. I'm surprised that Toyota hasn't at least taken a step forward this season and improved as the season's gone on. Guys, I was there at Sonoma covering the race with Brock Beard and LastCar.info when Toyota didn't place a single car in the top 25. I mean, forget the top 10. I mean, the top 25 is what we're talking about here. You've got to go back to their inaugural season in 2007 when Gibbs were still running Chevrolets to find the last time that happened for Toyota. And it was in a race that Toyota was the title sponsor for, the Toyota Samar 350. So not a great day for them there. And unfortunately, not a great day for them today either. Not quite as depressing as that if you're a Toyota fan, but you still want to see your cars running up towards the front, challenging certainly for a top 5, if not for the win, with at least one of your entries there. And Toyota certainly were not in position to do that today. And I've seen nothing from them that makes me think that they're going to be in position to do that when it comes time for a Charlotte Roval race in the playoffs. It seems like they have hardly taken a step forward, and they certainly have drivers that are very good road racers on their teams. So it's very surprising to see that they've struggled so much. I don't know if it's just something with the setups on the next-gen car that they're not able to, seem to be able to click like the Chevrolets and the Fords have. But it's very concerning if you're a Toyota fan or if you're a Toyota driver or team member. You better hope that you have a good buffer or a win before we get to the Charlotte Roval, in the playoffs, because it's going to be, I think, very difficult for me to envision a Toyota driver being able to win that race or even, come home in the top 5 or the top 10.
I'll agree with Ben on that. The Charlotte Roval, when we get to that race, if you're one of the Toyota drivers in the playoffs, you better have a win before we get to the Roval. Because here's the thing, they have not been good at the road courses at all. We know there's tracks early on in the playoffs that they're really good at. Denny Hamlin, Darlington, he could easily get a win there. Try to get those playoff points, because at the end, the playoff points, that's going to really make the difference if you don't have a win. With so many drivers with 1 win, a few with 2 wins, it's going to be very tight. You cannot be a Toyota driver like Kurt Busch, Christopher Bell, potentially any other Toyota drivers, Truex or Wallace, if they get a win next weekend and enter the Roval dependent on a good points day. That's going to be asking for a lot. You really got to go get some wins right now, because by the Roval, you want to be assured you advance to the next round. You're not entering the Roval dependent on a good finish, because it's not looking that great. Yes, we know the new car, you're a little bit more limited on how much you could develop. Toyota just seems to be really behind the Chevrolets and Fords in the road courses, which is a big surprise. And of course, we can have a big distraction of where Kyle Busch going to be, if that's going to be something that's going to get everyone distracted in the Toyota camp.
Yeah, and Kyle Busch's contract situation, it really seems to be something that's, still weighing over everybody's mind, especially Kyle Busch's, since the situation's been escalating to this new level. It really seems like Kyle Busch hasn't been on his game at all, and things are really seeming to be falling apart, and who knows where Kyle Busch is going to be racing next year. I know he'd love to stay with Toyota. Toyota would love to have him back, but, it comes down to finding a sponsor and other fine details that he talked about over the weekend. But getting back to the on-track action itself, I'm very surprised that Toyota struggled so badly on the road courses this year. And we do have a minute until we get to the Charlotte Roval, so they'll have some time to pour over the data, see what they can do to try to make their cars better for the most important road course race of the season, the one that's in the playoffs. And right now, I'm not really confident that Toyota is going to be able to go out there and get the job done at the Charlotte Roval, because they've been historically bad this year on road course. I don't know if it might be a bit harsh to say historically bad, but that's what I'm thinking. It's just so surprising to see this manufacturer not be able to have the speed and have a whole bunch of things go wrong and not stay competitive on this type of racetracks. And if the Charlotte Roval doesn't go as well for Toyota either, then they'll really need to hit the drawing board over the offseason. So when the 2023 season rolls around, that they can do much better on the road courses next year. And we just got word from Tech at Watkins Glen that everybody passed, no issues. So Kyle Larson is officially the race winner.
Thank you, Kobe. And now moving on to MotoGP, we'll give you a brief update on the racing action there this weekend. The Austrian Grand Prix saw Ducati dominate with Pecco Bagnaia getting his 3rd straight win. Bagnaia is 12 points behind Espargaro and 44 points behind Quartararo in the point standings with 7 races remaining. So as long as Quartararo keeps scoring points, he will be the champion. But with 2 bad races, it could be a wide open game again. So, Joe, which rider is facing the most pressure in these remaining 7 races when you look at who's at the top of the point standings right now?
It's very interesting, because I feel if this was last year, I would easily say Fabio Quartararo, because we all know 2020, how he had a strong start, the championship, looked championship caliber, and then that second half of the season collapsed. But this year, considering how underpowered that Yamaha is, he is just putting in impressive after impressive effort after impressive effort, week after week. While he was making that daring move to get second place from Jack Miller, much later in that lap, his teammate, Franco Morbidelli, crashed out in that exact same corner, and he was nowhere in the top 15. He is carrying that team. I feel he has championship confidence. He knows he just has to put together a strong race, score the points. It's Pecco Bagnaia, I feel, that's more susceptible to a mistake, because we've seen it time and time again. He leads, and then he goes out, crashes out. The last 3 races, he looks very determined, very good. He has to keep that championship effort going. He knows it's still out of his control, because if Fabio Quartararo just continues to score the points, it's his championship to lose. Pecco Bagnaia, I feel, has a little bit more pressure, but both riders are looking really strong, and I think it's going to be a great duel. Just unfortunate with Pecco's early season struggles, this could be a much closer championship between those two, and Aleix is in third.
And the pole sitter, Nea Bastianini, had a mechanical issue which forced him to retire. Jorge Martin was battling for third, but on the final lap, lost front grip and slid off the track. He did come home in 10th place to score some points in the race. Bastianini is now 6th in the points, and championship hopes for him seem to be slipping away. So, Joe, we know those two guys are fighting for this factory Ducati seat. Did Bastianini or Martin impress you enough to think that they might have improved their chances at getting that seat next season?
Right now, I would say none of them are a clear-cut favorite. Bastianini, really good at taking care of those tires. I think he would have been a contender for the podium if he didn't have the mechanical issue. But still, we saw he had to fight Fabio Quartararo. Quartararo got around him. That's when the mechanical issues ruined his day. Martin, he has the speed. He is always so fast. But the consistency is his big weakness. He could have easily had third place in hand, but went out on the last lap. He still managed to get 10th. And the one thing I was surprised, after the race, considering you went from potential podium to 10th place, yes, you still got points, he was still smiling in the garage. For me, if I was a rider and I had done that mistake, I would have been frustrated beyond belief that I made that mistake, especially knowing there's a potential Ducati seat on the line. I feel with Martin, he really needs to take this role, to take this opportunity, because it could easily go to Bastianini. He may not be the fastest, but when it comes to taking care of those tires, he is always towards the front. That's how he got his 3 wins already. Neither one of them are the clear-cut favorites, but if I was Martin, you got to really take this seriously. You can't smile after going from 3rd to 10th place on the last lap.
Well, Joe, the big story in MotoGP this week is the introduction of sprint races in 2023 after a press conference was called this weekend to defend the new format. Some changes were announced. This morning it was confirmed sprint races would not count towards Grand Prix wins and podiums. However, points scored in the sprint races will count towards the championship, similar to what we've seen with this new system that Formula One have introduced these last couple of years. So, Joe, it's been a day now. We've had 24 hours to reflect on things. Have attitudes shifted at all on the sprint race idea, especially with the news this morning? How are fans reacting compared to how F1 fans have reacted these last couple of years?
Still, I think overall it's a negative response. The fans are saying they're not in favor of this. We've seen some folks like Jack Miller. He loves the idea. Of course, he just wants to go out there, race all the time. Fabio Quartararo called it stupid. For me, I'm still reluctant to say I think this is the right move to do. Yes, we know MotoGP wants to grow their presence, expand their reach to fans. It's really adding a sprint race to every round the best way to do it. Maybe it's doing what Formula One did with social media, getting drivers in front of mainstream media eyes, getting more exposure that way rather than 2 races a weekend. I mean, we know here in the United States, it's really hard to catch MotoGP. Are they really going to have time to put 2 races, a shorter race, and the feature race will be the Grand Prix on television? And then now to say, okay, you could win a sprint race and it won't count towards your record in winning Grand Prix. So in theory, could someone win the championship by just dominating the sprint races, maybe have 1 or no Grand Prix race wins? How is that really going to look in the record book? I mean, already for the 2023 grid ranking, trying to figure that out. Overall, I just feel like this is not exactly the best executed plan. We've seen where Formula One, okay, they did 3 races that first year, but took expanded to just every single race next year. And your wins in the sprint race counts towards the championship, but not towards your win for the Grand Prix. It just seems really odd to say, to try to explain to the casual fan, oh yeah, they're racing now, but it's not really a race because if they win, yeah, they're on the podium, but it doesn't count as winning a race. I'm still not a huge fan of it. It's going to be really interesting once the season starts and it all starts working out itself, how attitudes, I think, might change, but I think it's still going to be very critical, especially in the first few rounds next year.
Well, and I can't speak too much on the MotoGP side of things, but I know there's been controversy in Formula One with how the pole position has been determined now. Does it go to the fastest qualifier now qualifying for sprint races, or does it go to the winner of the sprint races who actually has the pole position for the starting grid for the race on Sunday? So that's a whole debate and controversy that I think fans are certainly divided on. Although I'd like to think, Joe, but I'm with you. I think I'm not personally a fan of it on the Formula One side of things. We'll see how the MotoGP fans react. But I don't get this idea that the Formula One fans are super excited about it either. I think maybe the people in the suits making the executive decisions like it, they might think it's more entertaining than just watching FP3. Maybe MotoGP will be able to come up with a format that gets fans to be more willing to embrace the idea of a sprint race than Formula One fans have. But I have yet to find very many F1 fans that have liked the idea in Formula One. We'll see if the same happens in MotoGP or not. But as for right now, I'll turn it back over to you. We'll discuss some IndyCar action that happened this weekend at Gateway.
Yeah, the Bommarito 500 at Gateway. We had the red flag come out with 43 laps to go. The red flag lasted over 2 hours. We know there was some people talking about, is it really worth it for another 20, 25 minutes of racing? Well, the ending of the race was very, very exciting. An amazing finish, which we saw David Malukas. He pitted right before the red flag came out. Looked like he may have lost the race by pitting just too soon. But he had the advantage with much fresher tires, fuel. He was flying up to get his first podium, second place. We were potentially one lap away from a first-time winner, a surprise first-time winner. However, Josef Newgarden, his fifth win of the year, and he's now only 3 points behind Will Power with two races remaining. So, Ben, starting off with you. First win this year of Newgarden, most of this career in a single season, 5. Prior best was 4. Can he carry the momentum into Portland, a track where his best finish is 5th twice?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Joe. We've only been going to Portland a couple of times, so it's kind of hard to predict how any of the drivers are going to do. We don't have too much data to go off of. It's very recent that the series has been coming back to the track, so I don't know that we can put too much stock into prior runs here because again, there's just not as much data to go off of for Newgarden or for any of the drivers, so it could be a little bit more of a wild card when we go into the next race at Portland. But he certainly has the momentum with him right now. I'll say that much. It was a tremendous performance, as we've seen many times from Newgarden on these short ovals. A great run by David Malukas there as well. You see up there in second place. I know we'll talk about him a little bit later on. But I think Newgarden is certainly in a very strong position right now to challenge for yet another championship. And it's great to see a young American talent in this series being able to showcase his skills with a team like Penske. I certainly think he's got the car underneath him to be able to get the job done. And again, like I said, a little bit tough to predict going into these last couple of races, but we'll see. I certainly would not count him out. He's in very, very good shape.
Yeah, Newgarden is definitely in really good shape, carrying a lot of momentum into Portland in the season finale at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, and I believe Josef Newgarden can rise to the occasion at Portland. I'm not ready to give my early pick a winner prediction for Portland. Still a long ways. Well, it's not a long ways away, but you get what I'm saying. I think Team Penske will certainly give Josef Newgarden everything he needs to go out there and win this championship. 5 wins for him this year. Really, really impressive. And I know Newgarden said in even just a few races ago, he said this year's been kind of weird for him because we're either winning or not having a good day at all. But Newgarden he's right in the thick of it and getting closer to getting that championship points lead, and it's certainly going to be an interesting battle coming down to a wire between the Team Penske teammates, Power, Newgarden, and everyone else. And we're going to talk about everyone else in just a minute. But I certainly believe that all of the stars are aligning right now for Josef Newgarden to really take the fight to the competition and try to get a championship. I know if I won 5 races and came home empty-handed at the end of the season, I'd be extremely, extremely disappointed.
Yeah, it'd be disappointing to have your career best season, 5 wins, potentially more, but to come up short in the championship battle. As Will Power says, IndyCar's one of the hardest championships to win. And Will Power, he had the pole. He led early in the race, but he came home 6th place. In fact, the top 7 in the points finished in the top 9 positions. Sato and Malukas, of course, the 2 outliers, as they were up there because of the fresher tires. Overall, Kobe, how impressive is it to see a season-long points battle coming down to the final 2 races with 7 drivers having a realistic shot at this championship.
Oh, Joe, it's extremely exciting to see that we have this number of drivers who have a shot at winning the championship. But I say right now, by looking at the points there, 4 drivers have an extremely realistic shot at winning the championship. Aleix Palou down in 5th right now. I think Palou would really need Ericsson, Dixon, Newgarden, and Power. All of them would need to have like a really bad race at Portland, and then he'd need to go out there and try to win the race in order to have a more realistic shot at taking home his second IndyCar title after the race at Laguna Seca. But right now, my top 4 for the championship certainly have to be Power, Newgarden, Dixon, Ericsson, and the rest of the drivers who are eligible. I don't think it's going to happen for them at all. And when you think about the double points awarded at the Indianapolis 500 and seeing how close it is right now, it's just really remarkable. And I'd really like to see what the point standings will look like without the double points in the Indianapolis, without the double points offered at Indy. And I wonder if it would be closer or even a larger gap. But nevertheless, it's really exciting for everyone watching that you can follow this championship all the way down to the wire in comparison to Formula One, where we have one guy who might have one hand on the championship already with Max Verstappen, and Red Bull. It just shows how competitive IndyCar is, that there's like 10 to 15 cars every week that can go out there and try to win each race.
Penske struggled largely at the 500, if I recall correctly, and Marcus Ericsson obviously won it. So I think, that's really allowed him to stay in this championship fight. He has had a tremendous season outside of the 500. That's why he's still up there high in the point standings. But I think he's firmly in the championship fight, more so than he'd be if we didn't have double points at the 500. So yeah, who says you need playoffs to have 4 really strong championship contenders going into these last couple of races? Look at what we've got right here in IndyCar. You've got Power, Newgarden from Penske, and then Dixon and Ericsson from Ganassi. I guess you can kind of throw Palou in there. I think, when you think of the gap from first to, even 3rd, 4th, or 5th, the number of points you get for winning a race compared to those spots, I think Palou is certainly still in it. He is going to have to have some help. I'm with you on that, Kobe, from the guys ahead of him, maybe having some issues in order to more firmly get him in this championship fight. McLaughlin and Award, I think, are pretty much long shots at this point. But it is a fantastic championship battle, and it really speaks to just how competitive the IndyCar Series really is. And it seems like it comes down to this every year. I can't remember the last time we had somebody clinch the IndyCar Championship. I think you have to go back to before I was even following motor racing to find the last time that somebody did that. I know we had a double points finale the last couple of years as well. I know we've done away with that recently to just make it the 500, but it is still incredible to see how competitive this championship is and continues to be, and I'm sure will continue to be all the way down to the checkered flag at the final race.
And the championship is going to come down to a driver between Chip Ganassi Racing, McLaren with Opato Award in the hunt, or a Penske driver. Nobody from Andretti Autosport in contention, and they were not in contention at all yesterday for the win. Malukas, though, in that Dale Coyne Racing, he left everyone after the race talking about him. And maybe where is he going to be in 2023? We know there's potentially some shakeups around the IndyCar paddock, including potentially the 10 team with Palou. Still a lot of legal issues going on with them, as well as with McLaren. So, Ben, does Malukas stick with Dale Coyne Racing in 2023, or was this the opportunity now to open the door and start looking for some bigger and better things ahead?
Well, with no disrespect to Dale Coyne Racing, I'm sure David Malukas would ideally want to be with a little bit of a stronger, bigger team at some point in his IndyCar career, and he certainly showed his talent. I would have loved to have seen if he had discovered that high line a little bit sooner, or if he had just 1 or 2 more laps, he maybe could have taken the fight to Newgarden as well. He's certainly a tremendous talent. He should have been the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year as well. I think it's been frustrating to watch Jimmy Johnson on the road and street courses. Obviously, he did have a solid Indy 500 month. A little disappointed we didn't see a little bit more from him at Gateway here in what I think was really his final chance this season to have a very strong run in that Ganassi car. But, getting back to Malukas, it's a tremendous, tremendous result for him. In terms of where he might be able to go next year, the way this silly season has gone, I don't think anything's off the table at this point. You certainly have, an opportunity potentially opening up at Ganassi or McLaren, depending on how that legal battle sorts out. But, like I said, this has been the silly season in recent memory for me. I am not going to place any bets on where we see David Malukas next season. I suppose he could end up back at Dale Coyne Racing. It's certainly not a terrible team, a team that does a lot with a little and is capable, clearly, of having good runs when everything goes their way. But I do think eventually Malukas, you would like to see him in a Ganassi or Penske car before his career's over.
Yeah, if David Malukas keeps this up, he probably will be a Penske and Ganassi driver in the future, and we'll see what next season holds. I know Malukas' dad is currently a business partner of Dale Coyne, so it'll be an easy situation for Malukas to get back in that car for next year. But if you're a Chip Ganassi and you have that number 10 Honda open next year, I think you have to think about taking a shot at Malukas. I know rumors going around the paddock right now. It's a lot of people are saying that Malukas is on the short list to go to Chip Ganassi Racing next year, but Dale Coyne Racing has every intention of keeping Malukas for another season. But if Malukas goes to the final rounds of the season at Portland, Laguna Seca, have another impressive run, it's certainly going to be more difficult for Dale Coyne to keep him around. And I think if you keep Malukas there, he can really help Dale Coyne Racing continue to improve and get better, be competitive at more races. But I really think that at some point Malukas is not going to be driving for that team anymore. And if you're somebody like a Chip Ganassi, you thought Alex Palou was going to be your team leader in the future when Scott Dixon retired from IndyCar, and obviously that's not going to happen now with Palou in legal trouble with Ganassi. Do you look at a young David Malukas when we're following the Indy Lights Championship back? David Malukas often got overlooked by Kyle Kirkwood, and Kyle Kirkwood, in an AJ Foyt car, there's only so much that he can do in that number 14 Chevrolet. Kirkwood is not having a good season at all. And when you look at Malukas, he's absolutely shining in his IndyCar rookie season. And Josef Newgarden actually gave him praise after race, saying that he's one of the most talented IndyCar rookies that he's seen in a long time. Even some people are looking at Malukas as a young Josef Newgarden. And Roger Penske got Josef Newgarden, obviously. And here Chip Ganassi looking at the future. I'm not going to be asking myself, could this kid be the next Newgarden? Do I need to get my Josef Newgarden on my team now? Because if I don't, at some point when there's an opening in the future, because Will Power getting up there in age, I need to get Malukas before Roger Penske snatches him up, because we know the captain will do that.
The captain will do that, and of course, other teams are probably considering what to do as well. A comment in the chat room. I hope Palou gains a bit of momentum and clinches this, considering how tumultuous his future might be. He did win out Portland last year after first lap incident, going to the back, coming to the front. That could really help him. He still mathematically could leave Portland with the points lead, but he'll need Power, Newgarden, essentially everyone to crash and finish way in the back. So it's a long road for Palou. It's a long road for all the drivers in the NTT INDYCAR Series. And of course, that road takes them to Portland, where we'll be there covering the race weekend, as well as Indy Lights USF 2000, and definitely special programs. Be sure to subscribe to us right here in the Grid Network so you don't miss our Grand Prix of Portland coverage. We know one championship is starting to wind down and come to one of their bigger races, the Repco Supercar Series.
Yeah, and we're inching closer and closer to the great race, the Bathurst 1000. But first, we need to talk about the two races of the weekend at Sandown. We saw Shane Van Gisbergen win both, and he's still well in control of this championship with those two wins that put SVG to 16 victories this season. 2019, Scott McLaughlin won 18 races in his championship winning season. Right now, SVG is on his way to another Supercars title, and SVG's won over 60% of the races this year. And Adam, I have a question for you with this one. Is it inevitable that SVG ties or breaks Scott McLaughlin's record of 18 wins in a single season?
Well, Kobe, what Shane Van Gisbergen has done this year is incredible. And with his 16 wins this year, he actually ties Supercars legend and Bathurst 1000 champion Craig Lowndes for second for most wins in a season. And actually earlier that day, SVG tied Craig Lowndes' record with 43 career whole positions. And also, Craig Lowndes' record, 16 wins when he was a rookie at the Holden Racing Team. It stood for 23 years before Scott McLaughlin achieved his record and broke it in 2019. That's saying something. After everything that Craig Lowndes has done in the Repco Supercar Championship, I'm going to say yes. SVG is going to break Scott McLaughlin's record for most wins in a season. It's funny. You think about everyone from New Zealand. What SVG has done in supercars, what Scott McLaughlin did in supercars, and now look what he's doing in the NTT INDYCAR Series. And think about Scott Dixon, also from New Zealand. All the success he's had. There's got to be something in the waters down there in New Zealand. I mean, those three drivers, everything they've done in motorsports is incredible. So, SVG could sit out the next time out at Pukekohe Park in New Zealand. And actually, some news to all of our viewers. This year, for the first time ever, the Ultimate Sports Radio Network, USRN, they will have coverage of the Bathurst 1000 in October. So be sure to listen to USRN as they'll have complete coverage of the great race in October. It's going to be cool, to the listeners here in America. If they've never listened to a supercars race, they get to listen to the biggest race that the Repco Supercar Championship has.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun following the Bathurst 1000. Been following the last several years. Always a lot of fun covering that event. And what SVG is doing right now, I know the championship battle right now in the Repco Supercars Championship is not really exciting at all. I guess you can say at this point SVG might be inching very close to putting one hand on the championship. But what he's doing right now, we really need to appreciate it, because he might be on his way to doing something we'll see, something that we won't see ever again in supercars history. I'm sure a lot of people thought the same thing when Scott McLaughlin won 18 races. Now SVG is on track to pass McLaughlin and up that score more than 18. So if SVG is able to, let's say, get up to 20 race wins, I don't really see how anybody in supercars history moving forward is going to be able to do something like that ever again. And since this is the last year of the current regulations switching to the new cars next year, I'm not sure if we're going to see that same level of domination by SVG. I still expect the Red Bull and Pole team to be running strong, contending for wins and all of that. And I think Shane Van Gisbergen will still win. But I think the big unknown is how much is this going to help out parity in supercars? Are we going to start seeing all these different race winners, or is it still going to be the Shane Van Gisbergen show and everyone just living in it? But first, got to complete the current supercar season, and next year it's going to be a whole new ball game.
A whole new ball game. Next year is going to be very exciting. This weekend, we had a very exciting Ypres Rally of Belgium. Autonic took his second win in a row, third of 2022. Thierry Neuville, he was looking like he was on pace to win. Second to last stage yesterday, went in the ditch and then had mechanical issues. From that, he was out of it. Colin Rovanpera on Friday, he rolled his car several times. He finished in 62nd place. Still, he has the points lead because of all his wins. The top five in the championship are still in the hunt for the World Rally Championship picture. Rovanpera, overall, with his dominant season, he still has to be one of the favorites going into the last few rounds. But we know when it comes to the grid ranking, it might be a different story as he lost a position.
Yeah, that's always really funny and pick a winner. Whenever I pick Collie Rovanpera to win a race, he never does. And whenever I don't pick him, he always ends up winning. So I don't know when I'm going to luck right. Hopefully, I'll be able to do that by the end of the 2022 World Rally Championship season. And as you said, Joe, the grid ranking top 10 saw Max Verstappen move up to second and Fabio Quartararo in third place. Shane Van Gisbergen has extended his lead to 5 points over second place after earning 2 wins at Sandown. Right now, if SVG doesn't win any more races or finish in the top 10 for the rest of the season, he'd still be ahead of Verstappen's current score. But SVG only has 8 races left. F1 has 9 and 4 for a World Rally Championship. The largest margin of victory in the grid ranking was in 2020, 1.09, when Lewis Hamilton ended up winning that. SVG's running away with the Repco Supercars Championship, but can he run away with the grid ranking World Championship too?
It's going to be hard to say because we know last year it looked like he was going to, but then, of course, he wrapped up the championship, started racing a little easier, didn't get all the wins like he would normally, and then it came down to the Bathurst 1000, was in position to win it all, but then a flat tire was about 7 laps ago, ruined it for him. I see if he's going to continue to win. I do agree with Anna. I think he's going to at least tie Scott McLaughlin's record once that championship's wrapped up. How will he race is the big question. Max Verstappen, I think he continue on his winning ways. I don't see Mercedes being able to up their game to the point where they're going to be race contending for wins week after week. Ferrari, they really need to step up their game when it comes to strategy, reliability. They cannot make mistakes going forward. So I think it might be close between those two drivers. But at the end, Shane Van Gisbergen, he is in control of the grid ranking. He has not let go since Scott McLaughlin earlier led the grid ranking. It would be really impressive if he could go this long and get the grid ranking world championship and be the first supercar driver to do that.
Yes, and now taking a look at the rest of the top 10, 3 IndyCar drivers are in the top 10 and 5 are in the top 20s. Formula E's Stoffel Van Dorn moves out of the top 10 because of this, and he's in 11th. Ross Chastain dropped down to 22nd after a rough day at Watkins Glen, and it's really crazy that Ross Chastain has fallen so far down in the grid ranking, considering earlier in the year he was up in the top 10 and, the top NASCAR driver. Well up there. So it was, very surprising to see how Ross Chastain has taken quite a tumble in our ranking in the last 5 races. He's finished 32nd, 27th, 24th, 18th, and 21st today at the Glen. Has Ross Chastain lost momentum at the wrong time of the season?
Well, undeniably, the answer is yes. I mean, I know he got off to a very hot start to the season, and I think Trackhouse totally overperformed from any expectations anybody was giving them, especially with Chastain being in that second new entry or re-entry that, came from the purchase of Chip Ganassi Racing. I think Chastain certainly overperformed there. So it was hard to see him keeping, just as high as he was at the start of the year. But, you look at these finishes, 32nd, 27th, 24th, 18th, 21st, 5 straight finishes, 18th or worse, only one of those in top 20. I mean, that's a complete turnaround, a complete 180. And, it's coming at the worst possible time. I suppose the worst possible time would be the round of 8 going into the championship race at Phoenix. But, I mean, you want to be peaking at the right time, be running up towards the front to prepare yourself for a strong championship run in the playoffs. And Chastain and Trackhouse, they are doing the absolute opposite of that right now. And I think Chastain might have added, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier in the show, he added another victim to his list who probably won't be on a Christmas card anytime soon, spinning out Austin Dillon and inadvertently taking out, I guess, his own teammate for the day, technically speaking, Kimi Raikkonen as well, getting caught up in that effect. Fortunately, Dillon was able to continue on. Unfortunately for Kimi, he was not. So it's certainly been a frustrating few weeks for Ross Chastain. He's got to look to turn it around a little bit as we get into the time for the playoffs here.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you certainly want to be peaking at the right time, and it seemed like Ross Chastain and Trackhouse Racing might have peaked early. It's certainly not too late to turn everything around. Obviously, because you can put together a really good car, have a great setup, have the perfect race. You're winning. You automatically advance to the next round and the playoffs. Then all of these poor finishes he's had recently will all be forgotten. But as you mentioned, taking out Austin Dillon in the bus stop, adding another enemy to Ross Chastain's growing list of enemies. And at some point, you have to think that one of these days, Ross Chastain's going to mess with the wrong driver. That driver is going to be fired up, angry after the race, and on pit road, that driver is going to teach Ross Chastain a lesson that he won't forget. And then it'll be up to Ross Chastain. When is he going to decide that I need to start racing people a lot cleaner instead of doing the same thing over and over again? And I'm wondering if that's also weighing on Ross Chastain's mind now with everything that's been going on with him lately, not having the same type of runs we saw earlier, and just keep stacking a list of enemies. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ross Chastain can clean up his game a little bit as we enter the playoffs coming up soon.
And Joe, I think SVG can win the Grid Ranking World Championship. He is so dominant right now. It's like, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and it's hard to beat SVG down there in Australia. So with that being said, it's now time for our Grade 1 shining moment from this motorsports weekend. So I'll start with you, Joe. What's your Grade 1 shining moment?
I'm going with Fabio Quartararo for today's performance at Austria. Very few people gave him a chance against the Ducatis. We anticipate Ducatis to just run away with it because this is a high-speed, high-horsepower track for all those bikes. We know that's where he's lacking, but wow, did he put on an incredible effort to just be up there. I thought he was going to be good, solid day in 4th place. Then he got 3rd place around Bastianini. And then he got 2nd place around Jack Miller in a very daring move in that brand new chicane. He is really excelling. He really is showing he is championship caliber. If he could keep that up for the rest of the season, not let the pressure get to him, he is going to take the win. Fabio Quartararo, what an ever. He's my shining moment.
It's hard to look past David Malukas. I know he came up just one spot short of taking a shock victory, but for Dale Coyne Racing, for that young driver, just a tremendous, tremendous result. And like I said, who knows if he had discovered that high line a little bit earlier, or if he had just 1 or 2 more laps, he might have been able to get that one spot and take the win. I'm sure that first win is coming, and I'm sure we're going to see him in a top team one of these days. David Malukas is certainly a fantastic talent. He proved it last night at Gateway. He is my one shining moment for his 2nd place finish in the IndyCar race.
And same as you, Ben. David Malukas is also my Grade 1 shining moment. His reaction after the finish was absolutely priceless. On the radio, they told him that right ahead they only had 2 Penske cars. Go get them. And David Malukas was like, "Oh my God, they're Penskes!" You know, he was like flabbergasted. He was like he couldn't believe that he was actually racing Team Penske cars for the win on a short oval. And like I was saying earlier, David Malukas was the driver that got overlooked by Kyle Kirkwood in the Indy Lights Championship last year, and Malukas ended up winning a lot of races as well last season alongside Kirkwood. And Malukas is really coming to his own as a driver, and I certainly see him as a driver who's going to be moving on to a top team at some point. He's gonna win IndyCar races, and who knows, maybe he'll even win an IndyCar championship years down the line. It was such an incredible effort. It really seemed like he stalled out for a few laps when trying to race McLaughlin. Newgarden seemed like dirty air was quite a factor, and he couldn't quite move. But once he finally got the high line, got around McLaughlin trying to chase down Newgarden, you know, unfortunately, it was just a little too late. But if he had maybe just a couple of more laps or so, I really think he had the pace to get by Josef Newgarden, and then we'd be talking about a surprise first-time winner. And we'll see if Malukas can try to keep that form going to close out a strong rookie campaign.
And for me, for my Grid 1 shining moment, I've got to go Shane Van Gisbergen after his 2 wins at Sandown, tying a legend like Craig Lowndes for 2nd most wins in a season is incredible. And tying Craig Lowndes for most pole positions in a career with 43, that's amazing, incredible. I mean, Craig Lowndes is one of the legends down there, and I never thought I'd see someone, tie those records. And and with SVG, SVG is gonna break Scott McLaughlin's win record, and what SVG did this weekend at Sandown is my one shining moment.
with that said, we're out of time. We encourage everyone to visit the link below to our Patreon, become one of our Patreon members, invest in the Grid Network like Colin the Show, Mark and Robin have, or buy me a coffee, a one-time contribution for your favorite on-air talent. Big thank you to Edward, Amber, and Zach for buying us coffee. And be sure to follow the Grid Network on social media. We're all over social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We post live streaming content on LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon. Don't miss any of our future programs, including our programming from Portland during the Grand Prix of Portland weekend. And be sure check out public.com if you want to invest in the stock market. Use the referral code GRIDnet. There you get some free stock to invest. So use some of public money, not your own money, to get started. Then use their tools such as webinars, podcasts, learning tools to learn how to invest in the stock market, make new friends, and meet your current friends that are already there at public.com, referral code GRIDnet. And of course, this week we got a lot of programming with Ben and Brandon for Grid Encore tomorrow. And then Wednesday night, Kobe and Adam for Grid Tonight. And then we're going to have Women in Motorsports. Plus, we'll do it all over again next Saturday with Grid Life pre-race. A very busy weekend ahead of us. But be sure to subscribe right here on YouTube so you don't miss any of our programming.
And Joe, if I could just plug real quick, Josh Birch will be joining us as well. And if all goes according to plan, you may see a new face on Grid Network as well tomorrow night for the Encore show. So make sure you stay tuned into that.
Definitely stay tuned. Very exciting show tomorrow, Grid Life Encore. For Ben, Adam, and Kobe from the Podium Finish, I'm Joe Samriego. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.